thought we'd stay here a moment.
So we're taking the top one.
I thought there's a good spot to stop here in the morning time. In the morning's walk, we went on actually that way. And I thought this time we'll go upland. Should we call it the canopy, the top floor of the woods? You can see it quite clearly here. The top floor in Tumnafanogue and in these old managed estates in general was beech and oak. You'll always know beech. It has got a simple leaf.
No, that's not
that's
the
birch.
beech, no.
Birch.
Sorry, that's birch.
No, that's birch, yeah.
There's a little birch there.
There's the beech.
There's the beech. It's got a shiny leaf and its bark is very, very smooth. It remains very smooth. Good for furnishings. And parts for the captain's cabins. Beech would have been planted for that. We discovered earlier that during the Cromwellian campaign, a lot of carpenters arrived from England. If you remember, for those of us that weren't here, for those of us that aren't here, in the old days, a brehon, a judge under the old brehon law, required 20 years training. I had to train for 5 years, which wasn't never enough, to learn the language of the court. Now it's an 18-month period. There's no bedside manner, shall we call it. That's gone missing. But in carpentry started with arboriculture was one of the subjects. You had to master how to grow your tree from seed. So the Cromwellian carpenters brought beech to Ireland. They brought the beech seed. They weren't familiar with the sessile oak of Ireland. We have a very different type of oak. We're an Atlantic zone. Britain is getting most of its heat from the hot continent. We get 50% of our heat from the Mexican Gulf Stream. So beech would have been brought in about, when did Cromwell pack up? About the 1650s, 3.5 centuries ago. And it is quite naturalised. In fact, since I started collecting beech seed from different beech trees, it used to be 10%. You might get 10% fertile seed. Now you get 30–40%. The internet tells us, so I'm told, this tree in our lifetime will die in England, will die out in England. It may well survive in Ireland. Its surface roots, see its surface roots? It has no anchor roots or heart roots, it has surface roots. And the effect of climate change, as well as the ultraviolets that are hitting the ground, is the ultraviolet soil is made up about 50% clay particles. Clay particles, do you follow that? Clay is the erosion of the bedrock seeping up with rain up into the upper soils. So there's a constant supply of clays or ground rock particles coming up. The ultraviolet contracts the clay particles, meaning that the tree finds itself, there is insufficient moisture to absorb the nutrients, the phosphorus, the nitrate, the zinc, whatever the tree requires. The sharp bands of light, and we're going back to, again, there was a time in the world there was no trees and no oxygen. Oxygen was locked up in oxides in the bedrock, and then oxygen began to be released by the action of green plants, and oxygen then was raised to 20%, 21%. And remember, at 21%, the Earth's capacity for oxygen holds the ozone, which filters the infrared and the ultraviolet. So CFCs may be somewhat to do with loss of ozone, but that's not the issue. The Earth's green cover is at its lowest since the ozone was formed. The ozone is falling apart because there's insufficient green plant cover on our Earth at the moment. 14% of Germany is under concrete. We're told Dublin will reach 2 million in 7 years. And the single most carbon releasing process, as you know, is concrete manufacture. You release 5 cubic tons of pure carbon for every ton of rock that you bore out of the limestones of the Burren or Askeaton or wherever the limestone is and grind it down. And of course we all know Cement Roadstone Holdings holds the contract for the wall in Palestine. It is Irish rock is leaving this island in a cartel, and we're building this ugly partition wall on the West Bank. So all the time, and recently, let me also say this being Heritage Week, recently I used to work for the law department in Bordnamona. Recently I heard the chief executive in Bordnamona boasting that this island had exported that volume of peat that would fill haulage container trucks, you know, these mega containers, back to back from Dublin to Inisheer, not Galway, back to back. In 1 year we exported that volume of the Midlands. So the flooding, of course, is going to come. We should, of course, stop at once that volume of export of natural resource. Does everyone understand that? And again, today, Michael Starrett of the Heritage Council will be tackling Dick Roach on the whole issue of planning. We've got it so wrong. We really have got it so wrong. I spent 2 years living in India and as much again living in other post-colonial third world states, you know, and we are behaving like someone who's after getting the keys to the pantry and we're rifling the pantry. Not understanding we're in the saddle. We're now responsible to make sure that there's sufficient oxygen and drinking water and natural resources for the children. If you're pro-life, you must be a very devoted environmentalist. And if you're pro-abortion, you must be equally environmentally minded. You can't go backyard burning and threatening women with 12 years imprisonment if they abort. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So in the same way, beech, I reckon, will hang on in Ireland. It is thought Spanish chestnut, which is dying out in Iberia, right up through Spain and Portugal, it is establishing in Ireland big time. Do you follow that also? Yeah. That there are refugees, apart from black-skinned people, there are lots and lots of other refugee species coming in, butterflies, dragonflies.
Is that a good idea?
They'll die out if they can't make it to the cool island of Ireland. We will increase in this county, in that girl's lifetime, by 2.8 to 3 degrees centigrade. Things will change here big time, but nothing like the way it's going to start changing on the hot landmass of Europe. And there is a panacea. Do you know what I mean by a panacea? A panacea, there is a fix. Thank you. What's your name?
Yvonne.
Yvonne. Hello, Yvonne. I know you. All right. There is a pure panacea, and that is maintaining these old woodlands. If only because we can go to these oaks and collect acorns early next month and start propagating native trees. As you know, an ash tree extends its roots twice the distance of its height. So if you meet an ash tree of 100 feet, you have 400 foot of a mesh of roots holding river and mountainous areas, like Derry Bryan and so forth. Let's not talk about acts of God. That day is up. The High Court has called a day on the acts of God in the Cuilcha, in the Superquin versus Cuilcha case, Yvonne. Mrs. Justice Lavoy set the final rules in our lifetime for acts of God. And Quilter won't get away with it again. None of us is going to get away with it again. We're creating the conditions that are causing slips of Derry Bryan. Anyone ever hear of Paula Tomish?
Oh, Thomas, I did.
I was in Paula
Oh, yeah,
Tomish.
that's
I
where the
saw
landslide was.
one of the coffins
Yeah.
spat into the Atlantic. The cemetery slipped away.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
From not being vigilant. We must not look at our uplands as submarginal waste, quote the Forest Service. We must look at our uplands as absolutely very fragile areas that need to be handled extremely fragilely. Do you follow what I'm saying? Can you hear me? Okay, okay. Listen, we'll head up.